Tensions in the Caribbean had been simmering for months before the dramatic event occurred. The United States, as part of its ongoing operations to maintain regional stability and enforce counter-narcotics measures, had deployed the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford along with its strike group near the waters off Venezuela. The presence of such a massive naval force, with its accompanying destroyers, cruisers, and fighter aircraft, was viewed by Caracas as a direct challenge to its sovereignty. Venezuela had already been vocal about perceiving U.S. operations near its coast as a provocation, and the government had raised military alert levels across air, sea, and land forces in response. On the morning of the incident, radar operators aboard the Gerald R. Ford detected Venezuelan Air Force F-16 fighter jets approaching at high speed. These aircraft had been tasked with a show of force, flying a low-altitude dive toward the carrier strike group's patrol area. For the U.S. Navy personnel, this maneuver was tense and unprecedented. While encounters between U.S. warships and Venezuelan aircraft were not entirely new, a direct dive at the carrier, even in international waters, was a highly provocative action. The carrier's radar and electronic surveillance systems tracked every movement of the fighters, while flight deck crews prepared FA-18EF Super Hornets for potential interception. Every second counted. The stakes were enormous because any miscalculation could have escalated into an international incident. For the Venezuelan pilots, the dive was both a demonstration of defiance and a calculated test. Their mission was not necessarily to engage the carrier, but to signal Venezuela's capability and willingness to respond to perceived threats. The pilots executed their maneuvers with precision, flying low over the waves, banking sharply, and maintaining visual contact with the strike group. The maneuver was designed to showcase their audacity and skill. Knowing that such a display would capture the attention of both the U.S. Navy and global observers. On board the carrier, the atmosphere was tense yet disciplined. Officers and sailors understood the rules of engagement and the grave implications of any misstep. A single shot fired by either side could have triggered a full-blown military conflict in the region. The carrier's crew focused on monitoring the situation, maintaining readiness without escalating, and preparing for defensive action if absolutely necessary. Communication with U.S. command centers ensured that the incident would be carefully managed to prevent unintended consequences. As the F-16s dove toward the carrier, the air crackled with a mixture of alertness and anticipation. The scene symbolized more than a military maneuver. It was a test of restraint, discipline, and strategy. Both nations were acutely aware of the potential fallout of any aggressive move. Venezuela's dive was a statement, a demonstration of courage and sovereignty. For the U.S., it was a moment to prove that strategic patience, training, and composure could prevent a provocation from becoming a disaster. In this delicate standoff, the dive itself was the climax of tension. It set the stage for the critical next phase, whether restraint and measured response would prevail or whether impulsive action would ignite a regional crisis. After the tense dive of the Venezuelan F-16s toward the U.S. aircraft carrier, the situation could have escalated into a dangerous confrontation. The pilots executed their high-speed, low-altitude maneuver with precision, signaling both defiance and capability. From the U.S. perspective, the potential for miscalculation was immense. One wrong move from either side could have triggered an international incident or even an armed clash. The carrier strike group, including the USS Gerald R. Ford and its support vessels, remained on full alert. Jets were prepped on the flight deck, missile systems were checked, and radar operators tracked the fighters with absolute precision. Every move was measured, every decision weighed against the consequences of escalation. Yet, despite the tension, both sides exercised remarkable restraint. The U.S. command recognized that the dive, while provocative, occurred in international waters and was likely intended as a show of strength rather than an act of aggression. The rules of engagement dictated that the carrier's pilots maintain a defensive posture without initiating attacks. Super Hornets were readied for interception, but no missiles were armed and no guns were fired. The intent was clear: demonstrate preparedness while avoiding actions that could be interpreted as hostile. On the Venezuelan side, the F-16 pilots had orders to demonstrate capability and sovereignty without provoking a direct attack. After descending near the carrier, the jets executed a precise climb and veered away, returning toward Venezuelan-controlled airspace. The maneuver achieved its primary objective: signaling defiance and national strength without triggering a military conflict. The pilots' training, combined with careful orders from their command, ensured that the encounter ended without shots fired. In the aftermath, both sides quickly reassessed the situation. The U.S. Navy maintained its presence in the Caribbean, continuing counter-narcotics and maritime security operations, while emphasizing that its mission was defensive and stabilizing, not aggressive. Venezuela, meanwhile, resumed large-scale air defense exercises and readiness drills, signaling determination to protect its sovereignty but avoiding direct confrontation. Global observers recognized the incident as a demonstration of strategic restraint by both parties, illustrating the importance of discipline, communication, and measured response in high-tension scenarios. The incident underscored several critical lessons for military strategy. First, air and naval forces must maintain readiness without escalating minor provocations into conflicts. Second, careful interpretation of intentions can prevent unnecessary violence. Finally, restraint, communication, and awareness of political and diplomatic implications are just as vital as firepower in managing confrontations. Ultimately, the dive became a symbolic test of restraint. Venezuela demonstrated its resolve and capability, while the U.S. demonstrated its composure and discipline. Both avoided the catastrophic consequences that could have arisen from impulsive action. By exercising patience and strategic control, the encounter ended without conflict, serving as a rare example of high-stakes military tension resolved through calculated prudence rather than force. The stage was set for continued monitoring, mutual signaling, and a careful balancing of power in the region.